Canelo Alvarez. This is Terence Bud Crawford. Canelo versus Crawford. A true super fight.
The clash between Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez feels almost surreal-like, a collision of two boxing worlds that were destined to meet. Fight week itself was a spectacle, packed with highlights, tension, and bold predictions from experts who framed this bout as more than just a contest. It was an event carved into history.
Hagler and Leonard and Duran and Tommy Hearns and those kind of fighters, and by the way, Sanchez and Gomez and the great fights from years ago. This is one of those, and you're all a part of it.
They said this fight was born long before the cameras turned on. In the quiet dawn hours, when cities slept, but two men were awake, punishing their bodies in lonely gyms. Those sacrifices, those unseen repetitions, were the seeds of legends. Within those training camps, Crawford and Canelo were locked in their own private universes, each carrying the weight of legacy, each sharpening himself for a moment when no excuses would matter. Crawford's preparation was nothing short of a reinvention, moving up in weight to challenge Canelo at super middleweight. He wasn't just adding bulk, he was engineering a body that carried speed and sharpness into new territory. Every pound gained had to mean something. Every calorie consumed had to convert into power without sacrificing the elusiveness that defined his unbeaten rise. His sparring partners were bigger, heavier, and his sessions were built to sustain the kind of movement that lets him vanish in the ring after delivering pinpoint strikes. His camp radiated a sense of calculated evolution and artist, sculpting himself for a masterpiece. On the other hand, Canelo's camp exuded a different energy, one of controlled intensity and seasoned mastery. His training combined the traditional pads, mitts, heavy bag rounds with unorthodox drills that spoke to his instincts as a lifelong fighter. He kicked soccer balls to keep his feet nimble, honed reflexes that blended sport with strategy, and demonstrated that at 168 pounds, he was not just strong, but versatile. Everything he did reminded observers that they were watching a man with championship muscle memory, honed by years of surviving and thriving at the very top. As both camps teased footage, the story wrote itself. The slick sharpshooter stepping into dangerous waters versus the seasoned champion guarding his throne. But beneath the hype, the daily grind looked hauntingly similar. Early mornings, sweat-soaked shirts, aching muscles, and minds obsessed with the same singular outcome. The narrative wasn't as simple as speed versus power. It was experience versus hunger, legacy versus risk.
This what they give me this morning, bro. Go. Yeah. Uppercut, catch up.
Canelo carried the weight of history, a veteran who had seen every style in every storm, while Crawford carried the audacity of an unbeaten record and the brilliance of a fighter willing to gamble for greatness. When the lights dimmed and the bell rang, none of the promos or predictions would matter. The truth would unfold in fleeting moments, the split-second decisions, the lungs that refused to quit, and the courage to trade when everything was on the line. That was where fights are truly won. Not in the hype of Fight Week, but in the raw execution under the brightest lights. Boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. didn't hold back when offering his prediction ahead of this blockbuster showdown. With so much chatter surrounding the weight difference, Crawford moving up significantly, Jr. argued that Bud's added muscle should neutralize the issue. Drawing from his own career, he explained, "Terence has been bulking up to the weight, just like I did as a heavyweight. If he can handle super middleweights and light heavyweights in training, he can handle them in the fight. The weight should not even be an issue." In an interview with The Ring, Jones Jr. admitted that if money were at stake, he'd back Crawford. His reasoning was simple. While Canelo might have one clear path to victory, Crawford has multiple. If Canelo fights the absolute perfect fight, he can win. But Crawford has 6 ways to get it done. My money would always go with the guy who has 6 ways over the guy who only has 1. Jones Jr. also doubled down on all the smoke, questioning whether Canelo still carried the hunger that wants to find him. While Crawford's move up in weight brought its own set of challenges, ring rust, stylistic hurdles, and doubts about whether his dominance had peaked, Canelo's recent lackluster showing against William Skull only fueled more skepticism. Despite Skull's negative tactics, Canelo's inability to cut off the ring or impose his offense raised real concerns about his drive in the twilight of his career. History, however, reminds us that doubts like these often surface before career-defining fights, and champions who endure usually find a way to rise above them. Meanwhile, Jeff Horn the Man Crawford dismantled for his first world welterweight crown in 2018, shared his unique insight. Horn predicted that Canelo might come out fast, looking to overwhelm Bud with size and pressure. But he also acknowledged the possibility of Crawford weathering the storm and outsmarting him in the later rounds. It's either an early stoppage for Canelo, or Crawford outsmarts him, picks his spots, and tires him out like he did with me. Horn told Fight Hub TV he emphasized Crawford's pinpoint accuracy and ability to exploit defensive lapses, a formula that could sap Canelo's energy and open the door for a late finish. Adding further weight to Crawford's corner is none other than Andre Ward, a Hall of Famer and one of the most respected minds in boxing. Ward, who will be analyzing the fight on Netflix's broadcast, praised Canelo's suffocating ring presence but also highlighted the similarities between the two fighters. Both Canelo and Crawford are puncher box. They can box, but that's not what they really want to do. They want to hurt you. On fight night, though, they'll need to be They can't be reckless. Ward had previously refrained from making a definitive pick, but in a later Fight Hype interview, he finally revealed his stance. I'm going with Terence Crawford. Big, weight, jump, dangerous fight, but somebody has got to show me they can break his will. I'm not betting against him until I see it happen. Not everyone, however, sees it that way. Ryan Garcia, speaking on Cigar Talk, gave Crawford credit for his skill and predicted he would land plenty of punches, but doubted those shots would phase Canelo. Bud might tag him, but I don't think it'll have an effect, Garcia said, offering a perspective that captures just how divided the boxing world remains heading into this historic clash.
Bud's gonna do good. He's gonna do good, but I don't think he's gonna win. But I do see Bud like getting a lot of punches off, being able to tag Canelo with some good shots, but they have no effect. That's the thing.
He has the best chin that I've ever seen.
And nothing moves his head.
In laying out his ultimate prediction for how the blockbuster fight might unfold, Garcia acknowledged that Terence Crawford is a phenomenal fighter, arguably one of the best of his era. Yet, despite the praise, he suggested that Crawford could be stepping into deeper waters than he's ever experienced. When facing the power and pedigree of Canelo Alvarez,
one of the best, I just think that he's biting a little bit more than he could chew. But you never know. If anybody can do it, it could be Crawford. You know, I do see him like when he fights, I'm like, damn, how do you beat this guy? You know, he could do it all. He could box. He bang.
Interestingly, Garcia, who had once confidently leaned toward Canelo as the clear favorite, now seems to be reassessing his position, noting the Mexican superstar may be facing a more formidable challenge than he first anticipated. My biggest concern with Canelo is his intensity, Garcia admitted in an interview highlighted by DAZN Boxing. He doesn't carry the same fire and relentless pace he once had, and that could become his biggest obstacle. Garcia elaborated further, pointing out that while Canelo still possesses the sharp counterpunching and slick defensive reflexes that define his style, the question lingers about whether he has the stamina and sustained aggression he once showed in younger days or even during his dominant win over Caleb Plant. The real issue, Garcia explained, is whether Canelo can dig deep enough for that second and third wind. Against Bivol, when the pressure mounted with extra combinations and movement, Canelo's responses looked awkward, forcing him into defensive maneuvers that broke his rhythm and left him out of position. Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe and like this video, and stay tuned for more like this.